Welcome back to Guns 101, our video welcome messages for new gun owners, brought to you by the Self-Defense Radio Network. I'm Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories. My partners are Amanda Suffolk from Eye on the Target Radio. The guy behind the curtain doing the heavy tech lifting, that's Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. We're very fortunate to have law enforcement officer, author, firearms instructor, and head of the Massad Ayoob group with us now. Massad Ayoob, you've taught thousands of people to rack the slide of a semi-auto pistol. A lot of them thought they weren't strong enough. You've got some tricks.
Well, improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Yes.
First, look at selection. Today, with more new gun owners than ever, the market has realized there's a lot of folks, elderly folks, people with arthritis like me, people with upper body injuries. They can't just take the slide and rack it like this. You can do first the different grasps. Grasp like this is called the GI technique. It goes back to U.S. military circa 1911, and it's basically this movement here. Your problem with it is each arm is about 9% of our body mass, and even if you're doing it reciprocally with this hand pushing as this hand pulls, that is still less than 20% of body weight and body strength going into it. Or you can use what's been called the Israeli grasp, seen here safely with no magazine in place and an empty firing chamber. The Israeli grasp is we come up to the pistol like this with the thumb pointing forward. Now what we can do here, it's not just hand to hand. Where people go wrong with it, they'll take two fingers here. It's called colloquially slingshot in this country, like doing this with a slingshot. And I wish they hadn't used that term because everybody wants to do it with thumb and forefinger, and it's not a strong technique. Okay, an adult male can do it if they're not physically compromised. The proper way to do it, look at my hand. All four of these fingers firmly on this side of the slide. On this hand, from the drumstick of the thumb to the thumbprint, firmly on this side. Now what we're going to do is as we turn, it's going to be like a reverse punch in the dojo. Your rear, whichever leg to the rear is going to be the drive leg. It should be slightly flexed at the knee. As you dig in the heel and drive your hip forward, the hip is the center of body power. Our whole body now is driving behind it. This firmly grasping slide, this hand, firmly grasping hand, is retracting to the rear. When my little girls were 8 years old, either of them could run a 1911 45 with the hammer down. They may have only weighed 70 pounds, but the whole 70 pounds was going against a 17, 18-pound spring. Now, different gun designs will require different techniques and different degrees of force. So I was starting to say before, the industry has caught on to that, and beginning with the Ruger LC 380, and today with the Walther CCP and the Smith & Wesson EZ variation of the M&P, those guns were expressly engineered to require less force to manipulate the slide. And the person who hasn't yet purchased their new gun or is prepared to buy another might want to consider those. These are hammer-fired semi-automatics, a double-action Langdon Beretta LTT in this hand, a 1911 Springfield in this hand. Now, what you have with these, when the hammer is down, you're not just pulling against the force of the recoil spring located here under the barrel, which you have to deal with on any semi-automatic pistol. Now, with the hammer-fired gun, the mainspring, which is here, is holding this hammer down against the slide, so you've got to work against that too. So the first thing to do is simply come over with the free hand and bring that hammer back. Cock the hammer. Now we've relieved that spring pressure. Now there's much less force required here. If you've just got to have your hand here like this because Uncle Joe taught you to do this, and you'll piss off Uncle Joe if you don't do it his way. Remember what we were doing before was digging in the drive leg and getting our whole body weight going forward? We'll do that here. Take a firm grip of the slide, and the whole body pushes the frame forward underneath it, and then just lets it go forward. With the double action semi-automatic, we can do exactly the same thing. By bringing the hammer back, there's much, much less force that we have to deal with. We can do the Israeli technique that I prefer because it keeps the muzzle down range. If you've got to work the slide like this with the hand over, the problem you have with that is people, because you've only got the arm pulling here and can't get whole body weight behind it. Human nature, we tend to pull it into the center to get more leverage. You ever try to take something away from a little toddler and they go, no, and they pull it in instinctively like that? When people do that with a semi-auto pistol, and I've seen this taught on police firing range, we're getting what I've come to call the 9mm suction lepectomy, or you've heard of tennis elbow. This is auto pistol forearm if the finger gets into the trigger. You're also pointing the gun at anyone next to you on the training firing line or at the instructor behind you. By using the Israeli technique, the gun always stays in the exact chosen safe direction, which is downrange or toward a safe backstop if you're loading the gun in the home. So I prefer the Israeli technique. If you're going to use the GI technique, make sure this forearm never comes forward of 90 degrees. You might want to take a step back with your gun hand side leg, and those two things will minimize the chance of the gun turning and endangering someone else. Finally, with the double action weapon, once we've cycled around into the chamber, always use the provided decocking lever here to lower the hammer. The reason is if you lower it by hand on many of these designs, it will bypass the internal safety shelf. And if the gun is dropped on the hammer or forward, an inertia fire can occur in which the firing pin goes forward and discharges the weapon. Similarly, with a single action pistol like this 1911, once the round has been chambered, safety on. So on safe is the only way to, with the hammer back, is the only way to safely carry a single action semi-automatic pistol. When you're unloading the gun, new shooters always have to remember, remove the magazine first, then clear the chamber. A very common pattern of unintended discharge is people doing that out of sequence. When they clear the live round out of the chamber first, they don't realize they've just chambered the second round in the stack. Then they take the magazine out. They think the gun is unloaded, but there's a torpedo in the launch tube, and anything touches that trigger, the gun is going to go bang. The old saying among cops when we were making the transition from the service revolver to the duty pistol was that you had to be really, really stupid to have an unintended discharge with a double action only revolver, and just a little bit stupid for just 1 second to have an unintended discharge with a semi-automatic. It's a more complicated gun. It's easier to shoot well because of the nature of the trigger mechanism. It generally carries more cartridges than the revolver, but the price you pay for high performance is more sensitivity of the controls.
It's a little more complex. Yeah, it's a little more complex. Hey, we just got a little bit of time left in this video, but I'd like you to touch upon not riding the slide forward. You showed it so elegantly, so pulling it and then letting go of it. And so many people ride that slide forward.
Well, folks, I want you to remember one thing from me. Remember, slam it loaded, but ease it empty. The reason I say that, if we had live cartridges in this gun, if I hand rode the slide forward, it might not come all the way forward. The gun is designed as it's firing for the slide to be very rapidly working like that. But what happens in live fire, as the slide comes back, the rim of the cartridge here comes up under the hook of the extractor, which is located here. And it cushions it during that very rapid cycle. It's not there to do that when you're closing the gun when it's empty. When the gun has been cleared, let's say you're on a firing range and they tell you unload, show clear. And IDPA match, they'll have you actually dry fire at the target as we do at our classes. When it slams forward like this, you'll see us behind the line cringe like you kicked a puppy because the extractor is kind of going like this and it puts premature wear on the extractor and can lead to a crack of the extractor hood. So the general rule is when you've cleared it, sight and feel, close it, point in a safe direction, and drop the hammer, you're going to ease the slide forward. When you load the gun, you want it to slam forward. That's why I try to go with that mnemonic: slam it loaded, but ease it empty.
Okay, that
the
makes
1911
sense.
pistol, never let it slam when it's empty because it's ruinous to the sear mechanism.
Okay, it'll hurt it if you do that, but don't ride it forward. People are like, oh, well, that may hurt it, and it's like explosions happen inside that gun, so you're probably pretty safe. So Massad Ayoob, hey folks, check out him, check out his website, check out his training. He travels around the country. You can get training, you can get this caliber of training from him in person. MassadAyoobGroup.com, and there's more videos where you found this one.